There are some things in life that are never forgotten. The rites of passage that mark our individual and collective path into adulthood and beyond. Obviously, these contain similarities and differences based on generation, location, socioeconomic situation, and chance. There is arguably no greater ticket from pre-adulthood to adulthood than the acquisition of one's first car. A car, especially if it is yours, offers freedom and escape from the life that was. It can transport you on that proverbial road to bigger and better things. It can also offer difficult lessons about responsibility and wise decision-making, not to mention a forced lesson in economics 101. A car is a machine, just a tool after all, but to many it becomes almost a living thing. Many people name their cars and mourn them when that car is junked. To most, the first car was a ticket into adulthood and self-realization, a literal ticket to ride. We thought that it would be interesting to explore how different people remembered that turning point in their lives. The following are interviews conducted mainly here at the Stearns History Museum during the summer of 2023. Remember your first car?
It was a Mazda B2600 truck.
1984 Chevy S10 pickup, and it was formerly red but kind of orange by the time I got it.
It was a 2012 Hyundai Accent.
It was I don't remember if it was a 1999 or a 2000 Pontiac Grand Am.
It was a nice blue color Honda Fit. It was my brother's before me.
My first car was a 2001 Pontiac Bonneville Maroon.
1988 Isuzu Imar.
Okay.
It was a Ford Taurus. I believe it was a 95. Might have been older, might have been younger.
Very good year. I drove to Richmond, Minnesota, and bought a 1959 Chevy Bel Air for $800.
My first car is when I got, my mother had a 56 green Chevrolet.
Mm-hmm. Did that car find you, or did you find it?
Both. So this car was originally bought by my aunt, and she was the first owner. And then when she was done with it, it went to her younger brother, my uncle. And then when my uncle was done with it, it went to his older brother, my dad.
Mm-hmm.
And then my dad just kept it as kind of a scrap piece in his yard because he'd tinker with them occasionally. And so I said, hey, can I buy that car? And he said yes, so both.
I was 16, but we had it before that. It was my dad's.
Got it.
And then it was my grandma's before that even, so.
Yeah, it was kind of waiting for me because my sister, this was the summer of 1999, and my sister graduated high school that summer, and my parents agreed with all of us to buy a new car. They would meet us halfway. So they got my sister, they half paid for, she paid for the other half obviously, a 97 Pontiac Sunfire, and I inherited her 1988 Isuzu Imar.
So your car chose you rather than...
Yeah, I didn't have a say in the matter. I was just happy to have one.
Yeah.
I got it from my sister. She bought it from her boss when she worked at the Holding Fort Mill. So she got it for a deal, $500. So she sold it to me $500. And the story was that she actually sold me the brand new tires she just put on it, and the car came with it.
My grandpa was trying to get rid of it, and no one would buy it because it was so old and it had so many miles. And I was just excited to get behind the wheel to get my own car, so I just begged and begged and begged.
My first car was chosen by my parents, who were, very well-meaning and wanted me to have a dependable vehicle. So they actually bought it from the people I was working for at the Outpost Drive-In, and they were very excited to give it to me, and then I was horribly ungrateful for it when I got it.
Yeah, I would go, you used to be able to get Auto Trader magazines when they came in magazine form. And I would spend hours just poring over cars, so. Did you have a name for that car?
Well, that's a great question. After I, no, Green Monsters, I used to call it. So
there you go. That's good.
That's it.
Oh, I got a name for one. It's a Bonneville. Take a guess. Bonnie, yes.
I have a name. I called it Ramona. I felt like it needed to have a girl name because I was a girl, I guess. And I don't know. I remember as a kid I used to read the Ramona Quimby books, right? And she was redheaded and kind of snarky and like sarcastic, and I sort of felt like that's how I felt about this car.
Got it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I called it the 59.
His name was Denny.
We sometimes called it the Cyclops because it perpetually had one headlight. We would fix it, but it wouldn't really ever stick.
I did not give a real name to it. Every once in a while I'd say, let's get into Goldie, but that wasn't the official name. I named all my other cars.
Was
not
it
my first car.
Was it gold, perchance?
Yes, it was. I'm so creative.
So what do you remember most about the Grand Am?
I remember being a speed demon. I kind of like drove around like a crazy teenager. I had a little hula girl on the dash, which I still have today, and it's in my current car. I remember driving around all my friends, giving people rides. I was like one of the first people of my friends to get their license, so I was the driver.
I remember like when I got the keys to Denny, I was just so excited to like drive in him. He was about to clunk out. I only drove him for like not even a year, and I knew going into that I would probably need a new car, but I was just excited to like get behind the wheel. I remember I drove up to him my first practice for marching band, and I was like just showing off to all my friends, like this is my new car, like isn't he so cool? His name is Denny.
I remember that it got really smelly in the wet months of the year, and I don't know why. Like I never really figured it out. I don't know if it was something that was, like in the upholstery or something, but like it would rain, and then like the rain when it would come through the vents just was really, it didn't smell very good. I remember hauling people around in the back of it because of course, I only had one seat in the front, so people would pile in the back of it and I'd haul people around that way.
Lockout hubs and finding out they weren't locked out until you were already stuck.
Right now I am very nostalgic for the dashboard because it didn't have a screen. It just had like 6 buttons, like the radio and like the air conditioning, the heating, and no screen, and it was very like low tech.
It just offered freedom. I mean, the car itself just, I remember more about what it offered to me and the tangible things that it allowed me to experience than I do about the actual car. I tore the car apart because as a dork, not a dork, but I wanted to see what's on the inside of an engine. So to do that, you take it apart, right? So that was my first experience with doing some serious wrenching, and we used to go to drive-ins all the time because there's some drive-ins around that area. It was a really, really fun car, and it never let me down.
The lack of heat. I remember excitement, having my own car, and where I live, it's very pretty in the summer. I just remember driving the windows down and seeing all the trees and everything, and just a good memory to have.
Dating,
Yeah.
which is very important. I wasn't what the fanciest car, wasn't a 65 Mustang or nothing like that.
Yeah.
So, but I did entice some ladies to help me out in the dating process. They were very nice. What else? I did try and race with it, but I was only the 6th.
Yeah, it's like trying to race with a horse and buggy.
Yeah, it was a quarter mile. I tried it once and that was it because I got those guys about 6-7 lengths ahead of me. So.
Yeah.
2 things. First, it did not run properly, and so my grandpa had to fix it up first. And the only way I could get my car to start was by flipping a switch to the left side of the steering wheel. And everyone always thought it was like a seat ejector kind of button thing.
Nice.
The second thing I remember that was I spilled coffee in it one day, and even though it didn't smell like milk or anything, it definitely smelled like French vanilla for years and years to come.
What idiosyncrasies do you remember about this car? What was...
Well, the defrost didn't work,
Yeah.
so I had to frequently, if I was running behind in the morning and didn't have time to scrape, I would have to stick my head out the window.
So how do you drive a car in North Dakota with no defrost?
Yeah, it's not advised. Most days I was able to scrape it and it was fine, but some days you're just, you're 15, 16, running behind, so it just didn't always happen, but it was very dangerous and I shouldn't have done it because one time I remember pulling into the parking lot and like hopping a curb because I couldn't see where I was going because it was still dark out in the morning when I went to school, so.
So the left turn signal got stuck all the time, so my sister would always make fun of me and saying like, you're driving around the world turning left because it would just get stuck on and I couldn't get it up. It had like all the really shiny, or one time really shiny silver knobs and stuff on the inside, but like half of them didn't do anything. Like they were supposed to do something, but they didn't really, and it never defrosted. Yeah.
You would always, like, you kind of knew that you kind of had to restart him. Like, he wouldn't start. It would go like, and that's how I knew, like, oh crap, like, I have to, like, shut him off and re-turn him on, or he's just gonna clunk out. Okay. So it was like a 1-2.
I don't remember what the actual part of the vehicle is called, but there's something that runs alongside the under part of the car, and it was touching another piece of the vehicle that moves, and it was not supposed to do that. And so I was not able to drive my car for longer than 45 minutes, otherwise the friction could potentially have started a fire.
Well, in the winter you couldn't, the defrost, the windshield on a 59 Chev is acres and acres of curved glass. So the defroster was so anemic that you'd get like a little teeny hole that you were to look through. So I always had, if I was driving by myself, I always had a credit card or a scraper, so it's to scrape the inside of the glass. And if I had friends with, everyone's job was to scrape the inside of the glass so you could see. It had a giant hole, it's from Minnesota, so it had giant holes in the floor. And once, when I was working on a roofing crew in high school, I went to get lunch and I bought lunch for the crew and put the box of sodas on the floor and went around a curve and they all fell out the floor.
As much as I want it back, it's kind of a terrible car. Like, you can't accelerate with the air conditioning on.
Okay.
And that was how it has always been, like even when it was new. It's a very like low power car. Sometimes the steering wheel gets stuck if you park in a certain way and you can't turn the key to turn it on, so you need to wiggle the steering wheel.
So what adventures did you have? What are some of your favorite memories of Danny?
My favorite memory with him was like driving, so I'm from Pipestone, Minnesota, and like our biggest city is Sioux Falls, South Dakota, so like driving him by myself to South Dakota and back without any issues, that was like an amazing memory.
A victory.
A victory, yeah.
My best friend in the world, Trevor, and I, and another guy named Steve, we were out hunting, and we came to the top of the hill, and it was all running up. Whatever you do, don't do it. Don't do it. I said, I'm going to do it. We'll make it through. We did not, and I actually hung the truck up. The wheels weren't even touching the ground by about a foot, maybe 8 inches. I had to walk over a mile to go find a farmer and ask very nicely to pull me out. He did, but I still get grief for that one to this day.
A lot of cruising Broadway, up and down the main drag in Minot, which was called Broadway. That was just our idea of fun. I think a lot of teenagers do that.
I was driving it to college. I went to college in Duluth. And I was driving it and I got to Cohasset, Minnesota, so this little tiny nothing town. And the whole entire transmission fell out on the road, like the whole thing. So it just stopped. And then I was sitting there, and this was like pre-cell phone, and so I just had to wait until somebody came to get me. And then I called my dad once I got to a Dairy Queen, right? And they let me call him, and he had to drive like 3 hours from Ada to pick up this dead car. And then I had to call a friend in Duluth to come bring me back to Duluth.
I drove all over the place with it. It was the first road trip car. We went, it was big enough where you could haul like 8 people. So it was kind of the party car.
I mean, we would just go off in the middle of nowhere and just be just absolute hooligans. And I mean,
For some reason, me and my friends were really into driving into like uptown in Minneapolis when we were in high school. So just adventures when I was a teenager, driving down the highway and not really, in hindsight, not knowing really how to drive and just being let loose onto the world with my friends in my car, and I don't know, probably not driving very well, unfortunately.
So, if the green monster was in front of you right now,
Yep.
yeah, and you could say something to it, what would you tell it? What would you tell your car, your first car?
Well, I would like to drive you here. That would be cool.
Yeah.
What else? I would tell it that I know how to drive stick shifts because of you.
Yeah.
And it brought good times
Yeah.
for the most part. Not all the time, but
I don't know. I'd probably say something inappropriate.
Did I miss you?
Nothing nice.
I would apologize because we put it through a lot.
I would just say thanks for all the great times, and thanks for letting me learn how to drive. And
How much I miss him. How much I miss him. Like, he wasn't the top-notch car, but he was like the perfect starter car. I feel like he was like symbolizes like the perfect car when you're 16.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like sometimes these kids have like nicer cars than me at 16, and I'm like, no, you need an old clunker. Like, that's where you need to start out at.
All right, this might be a silly question, but do you miss that car?
I don't miss the physical car. I guess, like anyone, I just kind of miss the, being a young, innocent idiot, I guess.
You just never, you only have the first car once. And it's I don't know, it's a love affair.
I have no extreme love for my first car. Like, it was a good car, got me around. What I wanted, again, not really. Like, I think the connection for me to that car was my grandpa, who was like my guy, right?
Mm-hmm.
I also drove a Chevy S10. His was like nice and new and whatever, but so I think that connection was kind of fun because we both had red S10 pickups, right? And so I always thought that was kind of cool. But I much preferred to drive his. Mine. Yeah.
Yes, especially because I didn't have a CD player or a tape player. I had to do an aux cord that hooked up to the radio, but it only worked if I held it in one specific way. So I still drive one-handed because I'm so used to holding the aux cord.
It's just nothing better than your first car. Like, I still think about him a lot, and I wish that we could have gone farther in life.
Aww. Our interviewees were of different ages, had different experiences, and came from different parts of the country, yet all had vital and vibrant memories of their first car. For most, that first car was transitional. It was theirs for a year or so before it was replaced by something better. For a few folks that we talked to, though, the bond was just too strong, and they still own that first car, some over 40 years later. That first car holds a unique place in the American experience. Just look how many coming-of-age movies revolve around the car. Because when the car door closes and the key is turned in the ignition, childhood begins receding in the rearview mirror.
Ask me